What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over what to expect for the remainder of Season 4 because we are nearing the end of this season. There's roughly 30 days remaining in the season, give or take, at the time I'm posting this video, so we only have a few more weeks worth of content coming to the game, and we know a lot of what to expect, and I think this will be pretty much everything that we have coming for the rest of Season 4. So if you guys do find this video helpful or informative, remember to give a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, comment down below which of these aspects you're looking forward to most or maybe dreading most. And if you do find videos like this helpful or any of my content, remember to use code EvolveJake in the item shop. It's underneath the webcam at all times. If you use this code when getting skins or emotes or whatever in Fortnite, I would much appreciate it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Star Wars stuff. So this past week, the current week that we're in is Skywalker week. It's essentially a Star Wars Wild week, and all of the Star Wars stuff plus the pulse rifle will be rotating out of the game next Tuesday. So the 8th of November, all the Star Wars stuff will be gone. So the lightsabers will be gone, Darth Vader will be gone again, the pulse rifle will be gone, and the E11 blaster will all be removed from the game. Like I said, this is essentially a Star Wars Wild Week. They just didn't call it that for whatever reason. And if you guys have been playing Fortnite for several seasons, you know that typically the end of seasons are just kind of filled with Wild Weeks and somewhat recycled content rather than, real updates. So that's what I expect this to be, and that's what I expect a lot of these updates to be. We have several weapons being unvaulted: the Anvil rocket launcher, impulse grenade, charged shotgun and SMG, the Propifier, and the proximity grenade launcher. And like I said, expect some wild weeks coming towards the end of the season. That's always how it goes. And both the charged shotgun and SMG being set to be unvaulted makes me just think that there will be some sort of charge weapon week. And that sounds like a nightmare. If you guys aren't familiar with Wild Weeks, they're basically temporary updates where they add like certain items into the game that all fit a theme. And then those items have a boosted spawn rate for that week. So this week, the lightsabers have a pretty insane spawn rate. Charge week with a charge shotgun and a charge SMG, and those having a boosted spawn rate. It's not like sound like a fun time to me. I'm sure some of you may enjoy it. And it's not confirmed that that will be a wild week. That is just my guess. Impulse grenades, we had those for a little bit last season. They're basically just worse shockwaves. There are some interesting things you can do with them, potentially causing opponents fall damage, but I feel like that doesn't really work out too often. The Anvil rocket launcher is a lock-on rocket launcher that we had in past seasons, and there's a reason why they're unvaulting it, I think, and I'll get to that later on in the video when we talk about that. The Propifier is basically an item that turns you into a prop when you use it. So as the game is right now, you can get turned into a prop by NPCs. I believe the lady at Coney Crossroads can turn you into a prop if you give her gold. And this Propifier is just an item that does that for you. Again, this kind of sounds like something that will be a part of a Wild Week more than anything else. I could see like Impulse Grenades and Propifier being part of a Wild Week. And then the Proximity Grenade Launcher, I'm kind of concerned about them adding back into the game. Basically, this is a grenade launcher that you shoot the grenade or rocket, and then it blows up when it gets near somebody. So if you have somebody hiding behind a tree and you don't quite have line of sight on them, you could shoot a proximity grenade launcher shot just past the tree, and then it would blow up when they're in radius of it. It also will blow up eventually over time, like it's either timed detonation or when it gets close to people. But I imagine the proximity grenade launcher being very, very annoying in zero build for like the reasons I just mentioned. But it could also be helpful for flushing campers out of certain spots, like vaults, for example. I think would be really good for getting people out of there. Bushes, things like that. But overall, it's a pretty annoying item, and I think it'll be a menace in zero builds. There is also a supply drop radio that is in the game already. It could be unvaulted in any update or added to the game in any update or, introduced, whatever. It's already in the game. This will allow you to call down a supply drop, and you can either have a heal supply drop, a vehicle supply drop, or potentially just a regular supply drop. This could be interesting. We don't really know too much about it. We know the vehicle will be fully armored, so it'll have the cow catcher on it. It'll have the tires. I assume it'll be full HP and have full gas. So it's just what would make sense. And I think this could be really helpful for zero build endgame, like I kind of talked about in my update video this week. Cars can be a menace in zero build endgame. They could be really, really good. They're kind of countered by the goo gun, and I think the Anvil rocket launcher would also just destroy them, plus the proximity grenade launcher. But the main kind of difficulty or concern with vehicles sometimes endgame is just making it to endgame with the vehicle being intact, because a lot of people will just like focus your vehicle and destroy it, especially with something like the goo gun. But if you call this vehicle down when you're already endgame and it spawns in with full HP, then you kind of already just bypass that. I think the heals version will be interesting because who knows what that's going to drop. Is it going to be set heals every time? Like, is it going to be chug splashes every time, or sometimes are you going to get med kits? We'll have to see how that plays out. And then finally, if you can call down a normal supply drop, I think that would be somewhat helpful, but I don't really see myself caring about it too much. I just feel like supply drops aren't the biggest deal right now, especially with things like vaults and hollow chests in the game. I don't really have a hard time getting good loot. I really think they should rework supply drops in some way. In the past, you could only get RPGs from supply drops. That was one of the nerfs they did to RPGs, I believe, in Season 7. And I think that would be really interesting. Having set loot that you can only get out of supply drops does give an advantage to the people that get it. Like, it shouldn't be something that's so busted that you just auto win. But having some of the more, like, kind of overpowered weapons, like the Hunter Bolt Sniper, the Goo Gun, if those were only available in supply drops, I feel like you would see way less of them, and they'd be less annoying, and you would know that, like, that person had to risk something to go for it. I thought that was one of the better changes they did with RPGs, but as it is now, I feel like supply drops are mostly irrelevant. Like, there's times where they're helpful for sure, but I don't really find myself or anybody I know, like, consistently going for supply drops. So that could be changed. Planes and choppers, the helicopters, are set to be unvaulted at some point this season. This was already supposed to happen like a week or two ago, but they ended up not adding planes and adding crash pads instead. But there are several runways around the map where the planes are set to spawn, and then the helicopters will spawn at helipads around the map, and then also above gas stations. This may or may not be for like a wild week. I could see there being like some sort of aviation week, something along those lines, and then that's when they add the planes and the choppas. The only thing that kind of makes me think it's not for that, and they'll probably just remain for like the remainder of the season once they're added, is because the planes were already set to come out a week or two ago, and helicopters weren't. So don't really know what's going on there, but both of those items are set to be unvaulted. And I think that might be one of the reasons why they're adding the Anvil rocket launcher back to potentially counter those items. So I wouldn't be surprised if an update comes out and it's like planes are back, helicopters are back, and then the Anvil launcher is back, because the Anvil launcher is kind of, it is usable against people for sure, but it really shines as like an anti-vehicle option. So having that to potentially shoot down helicopters and the planes could be helpful. And then another thing that we do know is that the Chrome will make it to the reality tree, and that will likely be somewhat of the climax of the season and what kind of like sets in motion the event. There's this loading screen here from the Herald Cosmetics where you can see that the reality tree is obviously chromed, and also in the trailer for the season, Greasy Grove was chromed, so we know that the Chrome is going to make it all the way over there and eventually get to the reality tree, and then that's probably going to be the main conflict or the main kind of central point around this season's end of season event, because it is confirmed 100% that we are getting an event for the end of the season, and then there will be prolonged downtime afterwards. So the event will happen, there will be downtime, and then the new season will come out the next day. So that's what they've done a lot, but we just haven't gotten very many events so far in Chapter 3. I think we've only gotten one, which was the Collider event, I believe is what it was called, at the end of Season 2 before Season 3. So for many of you, I'm sure this may be your first Fortnite event, and that's awesome. The end of season events are always very cool, and it's very interesting to see how they kind of progress the storyline during a season leading to the event happens, and then it almost always ends on a cliffhanger, and then we have to wait until the next day to see what changes in the next season. So that is going to be it for this update. As you can see, there's a few items coming. We have basically less than 30 days, so 3 or 4 updates worth of content should be coming to the game over the course of this week. We're going to get, or this month, we're going to get planes and choppas. We're going to get several unvaulted items. I think we're going to get a few wild weeks. Unfortunately, they're not my favorite thing, but it's kind of always what they do towards the end of the seasons. And some of these unvaulted items definitely seem like they could be a wild week. Let me know what you think of that in the comments below. Do you think these are going to be wild weeks, or are they just going to unvault these items? Also, what do you want to see for the end of Season 4? Are there any things you think are going to be really cool? Let me know that down in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.